The sun was low when John walked down the broken path again. His hands carried a small bag of food, nothing special, just bread, fruit, and water. To others it looked like a simple walk, but he knew the truth. Every evening, he went to the same ruined place, hidden behind tall trees and silent shadows. There, inside an old stone shelter, lived an alien mother and her little daughter. They were weak, frightened, and always hiding from the eyes of men. John had found them weeks ago, shivering in the cold night, their eyes filled with hunger. He could have turned away, but something inside him refused. Now he came every day, carrying food in secret. The little girl was the first to notice him. This evening, her large silver eyes peeked from behind a cracked wall. When she saw the bag in his hand, she whispered to her mother. The mother stepped forward slowly, her movements graceful but filled with caution. She looked at John with the same suspicion she always carried. But she never rejected the food. John placed the bag on a flat rock and stepped back. He never forced himself close, never demanded thanks. He only gave a small nod as if saying, "It's safe, you can take it." The girl rushed forward, her little hands reaching for the bread. Her mother pulled her back for a second, then finally allowed her to eat for John. This daily routine was more than kindness. It was a silent promise, a secret bond he could not explain. Why did he risk his safety for them? He did not know, but every time he saw the girl smile, he felt the answer was clear enough. Still, fear was always present. If the wrong people discovered this, everything would end. Aliens were not welcome here, not anymore. Men hunted them for money, for power, for fear of the unknown. If anyone found out that John was feeding them, he would be punished, and the mother and daughter would be taken away, never to be seen again. The girl laughed softly as she ate. It was the first sound of joy that place had heard in years. John allowed himself a small smile, but his eyes stayed on the forest. Every sound made him alert. Every rustle of leaves made him tense. He could not let his guard down. The mother sat close to her child, watching John with unreadable eyes. Sometimes it seemed like she wanted to speak. Her lips moved, but no words came. Perhaps she did not know his language, or perhaps she was afraid to trust. John wondered what kind of life they had before this. Were they travelers, refugees, royalty, or simply a lost family? The little girl was too young to hide her emotions. Her curiosity broke through her fear. She often stretched her hand out toward John, like a child wanting to play, but the mother always pulled her back, whispering something in their own tongue. That night, as John turned to leave, he felt the weight of silence pressing down. Why did he feel so responsible for them? Why could he not walk away and forget? He did not have the answer, but he knew tomorrow he would return, with more food, with more hope, with more risk behind him. The girl whispered a sound, almost like a word. He stopped, his heart quick. Did she just try to speak to him? The mother hushed her quickly, pulling her into her arms. John did not hear it clearly, but he thought the sound was friend. He walked back down the broken path, the shadows long, the night rising. His mind was heavy, his heart restless. He knew this secret could not last forever. One day, someone would notice. One day, someone would ask questions, and on that day, everything would change. But for now, the daily visit continued. A human, an alien mother, and her daughter, bound together by hunger, kindness, and silence. A fragile connection in a dangerous world. And behind that silence, a secret waited to be revealed. The next day came with heavy clouds. John carried the food bag again, but this time his steps were slower. He felt something new in the air, a weight pressing on his chest. The path to the ruined shelter was quiet, too quiet. Even the birds seemed to hide their voices. When he reached the shelter, the girl was already waiting, her silver eyes shining in the dim light. She did not hide behind the wall today. Instead, she stood in the open, her small hands clasped together. It was the first sign of courage John had seen from her. Her mother appeared soon after, moving with the same graceful caution. She looked at John, her face calm but her body tense. John placed the food on the stone as always, stepping back. The girl ran forward before her mother could stop her. She grabbed the bread with a laugh, holding it up like treasure. Her joy was pure. Like sunlight breaking through clouds, John felt something stir inside him. It was not only kindness, not only duty. It was something deeper, something stronger. He was beginning to care for them, not as strangers, but as people. People who deserved more than fear and hunger. The mother watched closely, her eyes sharp. She did not move to take the food yet. Instead, she studied John as if trying to read his soul. John kept still, letting her decide. He knew trust was not given in a single day. It had to grow like a seed in the soil, slowly, carefully. The girl chewed happily, crumbs on her face. She turned to John and lifted the bread toward him. It was a small gesture, an offer. John shook his head with a smile. Pointing at her and then at the bag, she understood, laughing again, and kept eating. Her laughter echoed through the broken walls. For a moment, it felt like the ruins were alive again. The mother finally stepped forward, taking fruit from the bag. She did not thank him with words, but her eyes softened. It was the first time. She looked at him without suspicion. John knew it was not full trust, but it was a beginning. He sat on a fallen stone nearby, not too close, not too far. The mother let him stay this time. She no longer pulled the girl away from his presence. It was a silent permission, a silent trust. John felt warmth in his chest. As the evening passed, the girl moved closer. She reached out her hand, brushing against John's sleeve. Her skin was cool, almost glowing in the fading light. John did not pull away. Instead, he offered his hand slowly, carefully. The girl placed her small fingers in his palm. Her mother stiffened, but she did not stop her. That simple touch was more powerful than any word. It was trust, fragile but real. A bridge between two worlds that were never meant to meet. John wanted to ask questions. Who were they? Where did they come from? Why were they here? But he held back. He knew too much curiosity could break the moment. Sometimes silence said more than questions. The girl pointed at the sky suddenly. Stars were appearing one by one. She spoke a word in her own language, soft and musical. Her mother hushed her quickly, but John caught the sound. It was a word he did not understand, yet he felt its meaning. It was a word filled with wonder. John nodded, pointing to the stars as well. He said the human word, stars. The girl tilted her head, repeating it slowly. Rs. Her voice was broken but sweet. Her mother's eyes widened. Perhaps she had not expected her daughter to repeat human speech. Perhaps she feared it. But John smiled, and the girl laughed. The moment ended when a distant sound echoed in the forest. A crack of branches, heavy footsteps. The mother reacted instantly, pulling her daughter close, her eyes sharp, scanning the darkness. John stood, every muscle tense. Was someone following him? Was their secret about to be exposed? But after a few minutes, the sound faded. Only silence remained, still. The fear lingered in their hearts. John knew danger was closer than ever. He looked at the mother. For the first time, she looked back not with suspicion, but with trust. A silent understanding passed between them. She trusted him to protect her child, even if only for this moment. When John finally left, the girl whispered again. This time, the word was clear. Friend. It was a fragile word, but it carried the weight of a bond. A bond that would only grow stronger. A bond that would one day change everything. John walked down the dark path. The night heavy around him. His heart was no longer restless. He knew why he came every day. It was not only food, not only pity. It was the beginning of something greater, a fragile trust, a silent trust. And behind that trust, a storm was waiting. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The forest was darker than usual that evening. John carried the food bag, but his steps were tense. He had the feeling that someone was watching. It was not the wind, not the animals. It was something heavier, something human, when he reached the ruined shelter. The girl ran to greet him, her silver eyes bright, her hands waving. But her mother did not smile. She stood tall, her gaze sharp. Scanning the trees, she too felt it, the presence hiding in the shadows. John placed the food as always, stepping back. The girl grabbed the bread with laughter, but the mother pulled her close, whispering warnings in her own tongue. John understood the meaning without knowing the words. Danger was near. He sat for a while, his eyes on the forest. The leaves rustled, but the sound was wrong, too heavy, too sharp. It was not nature, it was men, hunters maybe, soldiers perhaps. Anyone who found the aliens would take them away, and anyone who helped them would suffer. John clenched his fists. He had always known this day would come, but he did not expect it so soon. The girl noticed his face and tugged at his sleeve. Her innocent eyes asked a silent question. "Why do you look afraid?" He forced a small smile, but the weight in his chest grew heavier. He turned to the mother. This time she did not look at him with suspicion. She looked at him with the same fear he carried. They both knew the truth. Their secret was close to being discovered. A sudden crack of branches echoed behind the trees. John rose quickly, moving toward the sound. He did not call out. He did not speak. He only moved silently, like a hunter himself. His heart pounded, every step heavy. He stopped when he saw it. A figure standing between the trees, watching, the shape of a man, holding something that glimmered in the dark. John's breath caught. Was it a gun? Was it binoculars? The figure did not move closer, but it also did not turn away. John stepped back slowly. If he shouted, if he attacked, it would only make things worse. He had to keep the aliens hidden, no matter the cost. When he returned to the shelter, the mother's eyes were waiting. She knew, without words, she knew danger was near. The girl held the bread close, her laughter gone, her small body pressed against her mother's side. She felt the fear, even if she did not understand it. John knelt down, speaking softly. "Stay inside tonight," he whispered. The mother did not understand his words, but she understood his tone. She nodded once, firm and strong. That night, John walked back down the path with his hands empty. But his mind was full. He could still feel the eyes on him, watching, waiting, judging. He wondered who it was. A stranger? A neighbor? Someone from the town? Whoever it was, they now knew his secret route. The next morning, whispers began in the village. John heard them when he went to fetch water. "He goes into the forest every day," one voice said. "Always with food, always alone," another added. "What is he hiding?" A third voice asked. John kept his head down, but his heart raced. The rumors had started. Soon the questions would grow sharper. Soon someone would follow him more openly. That evening, he returned to the shelter again. This time he moved carefully, checking every shadow. The girl met him as always, but quieter now. Her joy was dimmed, replaced with unease. The mother too was restless, her sharp eyes never still. John gave them food quickly, but stayed longer than usual. He wanted them to know he would not abandon them. The girl reached for him again, placing her hand in his. This time her mother did not stop her. Instead, she placed her hand on his shoulder. It was the first time she had touched him. It was not affection, it was not thanks, it was trust, given in silence. A trust born from fear, a trust that carried weight heavier than words. But shadows still moved in the forest. John could feel them, eyes that followed, ears that listened. The hunters were closer now. The question was not if they would find the aliens. The question was when, as he left that night. The girl whispered again. Her soft voice carried through the darkness. "Friend," she said. The word pierced through the fear like a flame in the cold. John looked back one last time. The mother's eyes glowed faintly, filled with unspoken meaning. He nodded. He would protect them, no matter the cost. But in the shadows, danger waited, and soon it would step into the light. Days passed, but John did not stop his visits, even with the shadows following, even With the whispers in the village, he kept walking the broken path. Each step was dangerous, but each step felt necessary. For every day he arrived, the girl's smile grew brighter, and every day, the mother's eyes softened. Just a little more, the bond between them was no longer fragile. It was becoming strong, though unspoken. The girl now waited at the entrance. Before John even appeared, she would clap her hands and run to him, her voice full of joy. The mother still pulled her close at times, but not with the same fear as before. There was trust now, trust born from survival. John brought more than food. Sometimes he carried small things, a wooden toy, a blanket, a simple book. The girl touched them with wonder, her silver eyes glowing as if she had discovered treasure. She laughed when he showed her how to move the toy. She traced the letters of the book, though she could not yet read. Her mother watched quietly, her face unreadable, but once, John thought, he saw the smallest smile touch her lips. One evening, John sat near the fire they had built. The girl sat beside him, holding the wooden toy. She looked at him and spoke again, this time clearer. "Friend," she said, pointing to him. Then she pointed to herself. Whispering something in her own tongue, John repeated it softly. Though the word felt strange in his mouth, the girl laughed, nodding quickly. Her mother froze, her eyes wide, but then she relaxed, lowering her head. For the first time, she did not silence her daughter. That moment felt powerful. Two worlds, two languages, meeting through a child's laughter. The bond was no longer silence. It was beginning to speak, but shadows still lingered. John could feel the watchful eyes. Every sound in the forest made him tense. Yet inside the ruined shelter, he felt peace. He felt something he had not felt in years. Family. Not by blood, but by choice. The girl often reached for his hand, her small fingers gripping his tightly. It was a habit now, a sign of trust. The mother too no longer stood apart. She sat closer, sometimes across from him, sometimes beside. The distance between them shrinking every day. John began to notice things about her, the way her eyes glowed faintly in the dark, the way her voice sounded like music when she whispered to her child, the way she always placed herself between danger and the girl. She was not just cautious, she was protective with every breath. And John respected that. He understood her fear, because he felt it too. One night, the wind was strong and the ruins shook. John stayed longer, helping to keep the fire alive. The girl sat in his lap, her head resting against his chest. Her mother watched, her eyes unreadable. At last she spoke, her voice soft. It was a word John did not know, but the tone was not harsh, not suspicious. It sounded like acceptance, like she was saying, "I see you, I trust you." John nodded slowly. Even without understanding, he knew what she meant. That night he left with warmth in his heart. The bond had grown stronger, more than food, more than survival. It was something deeper. But danger was never far. In the village, whispers turned into questions. Why does John walk the forest every evening? Who does he meet there? Why does he carry food, but return with empty hands? The eyes of men were sharper now. John could feel the net tightening around him. Still, he could not stop. Each time he saw the girl's smile, each time he felt her hand in his, he knew he would risk everything. He knew he could not abandon them. One evening, as the stars burned above, the girl pointed again. "Stars," she said in her soft voice. John repeated, smiling. The mother lifted her eyes too, staring at the sky. For the first time, John saw wonder in her expression, not fear. It was a moment of peace in a world filled with danger, and John swore in his heart that he would protect that moment forever. The bond had grown, but so had the danger, and soon the shadows would not stay hidden. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The nights were colder now. The forest whispered with strange voices, the kind that made even brave men uneasy. John walked the path again, food bag in hand, his eyes sharp. He had heard more whispers in the village, louder, harsher. Someone had said, "He hides something in the woods." Someone else had replied, "We will find out soon." He knew time was running out, but still, he could not stay away. The girl and her mother waited for him. They were no longer strangers to his heart. They were something more, something precious that night. When John reached the ruined shelter, the fire inside was dim. The girl was curled in her mother's arms, shivering. Her mother looked up as John entered, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. He placed the food down, but this time he did not step back. He stayed, his hands shaking as he pulled out the blanket he had brought. He wrapped it around the girl carefully. The mother watched, tense at first, then softening. The girl whispered her favorite word, "Friend." John smiled weakly, though his heart was heavy, because outside the forest, danger was already moving. He had seen tracks on the path, fresh footprints not his own. He had heard the snapping of branches when no one should be there. The hunters were close, he could feel it, and tonight, the truth would no longer stay hidden. The girl began to drift to sleep, her small hands still clutching his sleeve. John sat beside her, his eyes on the doorway. The mother finally spoke, her voice low and steady. The words were foreign, but her tone was clear. She was asking him something, warning him, perhaps even pleading. John leaned closer, shaking his head. "I won't leave," he whispered. Even if she did not understand the language, she understood his intent. Her eyes widened, her lips trembling, and then, for the first time, she spoke in broken human words. "Danger." "Come." John froze. Her voice was rough, but clear enough. She knew she had felt it too. Before he could answer, the forest outside cracked open with heavy steps. Voices followed, human voices, sharp and cruel. "Over here," one called. "I saw firelight," another replied. The mother grabbed her daughter, pulling her close. John's body moved before his mind. He stood, shielding them with his frame. Shadows appeared in the doorway, men carrying rifles, their eyes hard. They froze when they saw what was inside. The girl whimpered softly. Her mother hissed in there, alien tongue clutching her tighter. John raised his hands, but his voice was steady. "There's nothing here for you," he said. But the men laughed. "Nothing? Then why do you come here every night?" Their eyes shifted to the mother and daughter. One of the men smirked. Well, what do we have here?" John's blood turned to fire. He stepped forward, blocking their path. "They are under my protection," he said firmly. The men laughed louder. "Your protection? They are not even human." The girl began to cry, her small hands covering her face. Her mother held her, but her own body shook. The glow in her eyes burned brighter, almost fierce. John noticed it, and so did the men. "What are they?" One whispered, stepping closer. The mother whispered something sharp, her voice like steel. The men did not understand the language, but John saw the truth in her eyes. They were not ordinary aliens. They were something more. The men raised their rifles. John's heart pounded. He had no weapon, no plan, only his will. He spread his arms wide, shouting, "You'll have to go through me first." The men hesitated, not because of his words, but because of the mother. Her eyes blazed like silver fire. Her voice rose, chanting in her own tongue. The air inside the ruins trembled. The girl clung to her, crying, but not from fear, from power, from something John could not understand. The hunters stepped back, fear flickering in their eyes. One muttered, "What are they?" The mother's voice grew louder, sharper, and then, as quickly as it began, the fire in her eyes dimmed. She collapsed to her knees, weak and trembling. The girl clutched her tightly. John rushed to their side, shielding them again. The men whispered among themselves, confused and afraid. At last, they turned and vanished into the forest, their footsteps fading into the night. Silence returned, heavy and broken. John held the mother's arm, steadying her. She looked at him, her eyes filled with exhaustion, but also with something else, trust, full and complete. She whispered, her voice faint but clear, "Not ordinary." "Never tell," John nodded, his heart pounding. He understood now. They were not just refugees, not just wanderers. They were something greater, something dangerous. And now their secret was his as well. The discovery had changed everything, and the shadows would return, stronger than before. The forest was silent after the hunters left. But silence did not mean safety. John knew they would return, and next time they would not hesitate. The mother sat weakly against the broken wall, her daughter clinging to her, her glowing eyes dimmed, her breathing heavy. She had shown her power, but it had cost her strength. John stayed beside them, his hand steady on her shoulder. The girl looked at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Friend," she whispered again, her voice trembling. John felt the weight of the word like never before. He was no longer just a visitor bringing food. He was their shield, their only chance. The fire burned low, shadows dancing across the ruined walls. The mother's gaze lifted to him, slow and heavy. She spoke in broken human words, each one sharp with effort. Danger. Always. No safe. Her meaning was clear. They could not stay here. Every night was a risk, every day a threat, if the hunters did not take them. The cold or hunger eventually would. John sat back, his hands trembling. He knew she was right. The village already suspected him. Soon someone would follow him again. Soon the secret would be torn open, and then everything would end. His mind spun with questions. What could he do? Where could they go? He lived on the edge of the village, a small cabin built by his own hands. It was simple, but it was shelter. There was food, a fire, safety, at least for a while. But if he brought them there, if anyone discovered them, it would be the end. Of him too. He looked at the girl, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She smiled at him through her tears. Her trust was pure, without hesitation. It pierced his heart like a blade. He could not let her down. He could not turn away. The mother's eyes locked onto his. She did not smile, but she did not look away, either. She was waiting for his choice. Would he abandon them here, or would he risk everything to protect them? John took a deep breath, his voice steady. "Come with me," he said. The words were simple, but heavy as stone. The girl tilted her head, not fully understanding. The mother's eyes widened, her body tense. She whispered something in her own tongue, fast and sharp. Her daughter clutched her hand, whispering back. Then the mother looked at John again, her eyes filled with doubt, with fear, but also with hope. He repeated, slower this time, pointing to himself. Then the path. "Come, live with me," the girl gasped softly, her eyes wide with wonder. She tugged at her mother's sleeve, nodding eagerly. The mother's breath shook. She was torn between fear and trust, between danger and survival. Minutes passed in silence. Fire crackled, the forest whispered. John waited, his heart pounding. Finally, the mother placed her hand on his arm. Her grip was weak, but her meaning strong. "Yes," she whispered. The single word nearly broke him, because it was not just an answer. It was her trust, her life, her child's life, placed in his hands. They would come. They would leave the ruins and follow him. But John knew what that meant. It meant hiding them, protecting them, lying for them. It meant fighting if he had to, and it meant giving up the little safety he still had when dawn came. He helped them stand. The girl held his hand tightly as they walked. The mother followed, her eyes scanning every shadow. The path felt longer than ever. Every sound made John's heart race. Every bird cry felt like an alarm. But step by step they moved closer to his cabin, closer to a new life. As they walked, John felt the weight of his choice settle in. There was no going back now. If the village discovered them, if the hunters returned, he would be called a traitor. But he did not care, because when the girl looked at him and whispered, "Friend," he knew he had made the only choice he could. By the time they reached the cabin, the sun was rising. The light painted the walls with gold. The girl gasped, pointing at the small house as if it were a palace. The mother stood silent, her face unreadable. But John could see it in her eyes, relief, fear, and something else. The beginning of trust. opened the door, letting them inside. For the first time, the shelter of his cabin held more than one heart. It held three lives bound together by danger, by trust, and by choice. John knew this was only the beginning. The world outside would not rest. The hunters would return. The village would grow suspicious. But inside his cabin, for now, there was warmth. For now, there was family, and John swore to himself he would protect it, no matter what. The choice was made, and it would change all their fates. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The cabin was quiet in the first morning light. John stood by the door, watching the forest. His hands rested on the wooden frame, but his mind was restless. Inside, the girl laughed softly, her voice like a small bird. She was exploring every corner of the cabin, touching chairs, blankets, and tools with wonder. To her, this place was magic. To John, it was a risk, a secret waiting to be discovered. The mother sat near the fire, her eyes on her daughter, her body still tense, her face still guarded. But the fear in her eyes had softened, just a little. She was no longer a stranger in the ruins. She was a guest under his roof, and that meant she was family now. Whether she accepted it or not, John placed the food on the table, bread, fruit, and water, the same as always. But somehow it felt different today, because they were no longer hidden in shadows. They were here, in his home, sharing his fire, his walls, his life. The girl clapped her hands and pointed to him. "Friend," she said brightly, her voice stronger now. John smiled, but the weight in his heart remained. Friend was a simple word, but it carried responsibility. It meant he could never let her down. It meant he had chosen this path fully. The mother looked at him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim cabin. She spoke softly, her words broken but clear enough. "No safe here." "Men come." John nodded. He had already thought the same. The hunters would not give up. The villagers would grow more suspicious. It was only a matter of time before someone came knocking. Still, he did not regret his choice. If danger came, he would face it. If men tried to take them, he would fight. Because now, the bond between them was more than kindness. It was more than survival. It was family. Days passed, and slowly, life in the cabin began to change. The girl grew bolder, her laughter filling the small rooms. She repeated human words with joy, pointing at objects and waiting for John to name them. "Fire," she said. "Chair," she whispered. "Star." She shouted when night fell. Each word was a victory. A step closer to a bridge between two worlds. The mother remained quiet, but her silence no longer carried only fear. Sometimes when she thought John was not looking, he saw her watching him. Her eyes were no longer cold. They carried something warmer, something unspoken, perhaps gratitude, perhaps respect, perhaps something even deeper. But the shadows outside had not disappeared. One evening, John found footprints near the edge of the forest, fresh, deep, and far too close. The hunters were circling again. He tightened his grip on the axe he carried, his heart heavy with the knowledge that peace could not last forever. That night, the mother spoke to him, her voice urgent. "Leave? U.S. go. Safer away." But John shook his head. "There is no safe place," he whispered back. "They will find you anywhere." She looked at him with pain in her eyes. He could see she wanted to protect her daughter, even if it meant leaving him behind. But the girl clung to John's arm, shaking her head. "Friend," she said, refusing to let go. The mother closed her eyes, torn between two fears. But when she opened them again, her gaze was firm. She stayed. The next day, the hunters came closer. John heard voices in the distance, laughter and footsteps breaking the silence. But they did not find the cabin. Not yet. The forest was thick, the shadows deep, and John knew he had little time left. That evening, as stars filled the sky, the girl pointed again. Her small hand lifted toward the heavens, but this time she whispered something new. "Home," she said softly, her voice trembling. John's heart stopped. Home. She had called his cabin home. He looked at her mother, at the fire that warmed them all. And he realized that no matter what happened outside, this was their truth. They were home because they were together. The mother leaned close to him, her voice low. "One day, you know who we are," she whispered. Her words carried weight. A secret still hidden. John did not ask, he only nodded. Because trust did not need answers now, it only needed faith. As the fire burned low, John sat with them, the girl curled against his side, her mother watching quietly, for the first time. The cabin did not feel small, it felt vast, filled with something greater than fear. It felt filled with hope. Outside, danger waited. Hunters sharpened their weapons, whispers in the village grew darker, but inside the cabin, a new beginning had already started. A human, an alien mother, and her daughter, bound by food, trust, danger, and choice, bound by something stronger than blood, bound by the simple word that had changed everything, friend. Asterisk, 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 asterisk.